couple of minutes to join. Also, I'm going to apologise from now. I'm going to be on mute for most of this, but I really hope you can't hear. There's been like sirens and things going on around outside my house all afternoon, and I don't know why. So hopefully you can't see that, and that won't come through in any of the questions, but apologies in advance. Yeah. Hi, people who are jumping on now. Good to see you all. Welcome to today's session. Where's everyone calling in from today? So usually UK and more UK based, or have got where are you guys basically? London again, nice. Argentina from Paris. Hola. Or bonjour. I'm not actually sure which one would be more appropriate in that setup. Hey, Yolanda. Nigeria. This is one of my favourite bits when we just see where everyone's coming in from and calling, like where you all are in the world. It's always nice to see you. I am also in London, like Bola, so ready to help.
Amsterdam.
We've got a full international representation of Europe, maybe not international, but got a lot of us. Cool. As a few of you are joining, just a quick note, apologies about the mental matching and the delay there. I posted in Slack, we are getting there. You should be connected to your mentor by the end of today, hopefully. I'm sorry, we did have a few people who applied after the initial deadline for getting a mentor. We have had to give priority to those who got in before the deadline. If we have more mentors sign up in the next week, we will connect you with a mentor there as well. But we, yeah, unfortunately, we have had to give priority, but I hope you should all get more information on that in the next day or two. And yeah, again, apologies for the delay there. Also, a quick note, because we often get questions about this before or after sessions. All sessions are recorded and all recordings will end up on the Notion page. You will get, I will now be weekly sharing the Notion on the Notion page on Slack. The recordings only go up on the Friday at the end of the week. So if you miss a session, don't expect to be able to access the recording the next day. What would be best would be to actually check over the weekend or even on the Monday afterwards and access Notion then, because yeah, recordings get added on Friday. Sometimes if you check in on a Friday and you click on the recording and it's just taking a little while to load, just come back a little bit later. Sometimes it takes a while for everything to connect, but it is all there and everything will be added. So we will make sure that you can access all the sessions, even if you can't go live for whatever reason. And also please do, again, let us know if there's any reason why you're not going to be able to join a significant number of sessions live. It's usually fine, just we'd like to know, because we do double check attendance and if people are joining in. I think that's the two key bits of admin. Another thing is, as usual, we have got Q&A open. So please do just join in and you feel free to ask any questions either there or in the chat. As with before the Q&A, you can see the questions that others have been asking. So keep an eye on that and see what's already come through. Please do upvote any questions that you yourself want to ask. It's much more likely to be answered if we see that it's been upvoted, rather than if the same question gets put in a few different times. And also we know to kind of prioritize the more popular questions or the areas that you guys know less about as a group. And I think there's something else, but I can't remember it, so it's probably not hugely important for now. Or I'll remember it later and I'll tell you before the end of the session. In the interest of timing, I know a few people are running late and they have told me that, but we'll kind of get started, and I'm going to hand over to Janneke, who's going to be leading the session. And yeah, over to you.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Yes, so thanks a lot for having me, and it's great to be here today. My name is Janneke Niesse. I'm an entrepreneur turned investor, and I work at Capital T. I started Capital T together with Eva. It's a pre-seed and seed fund. We invest in companies that solve a real problem with AI in digital health, education, climate tech, future of work, and the new social. And we use a model to evaluate teams more data-driven that I'm going to tell you a lot about today. I think first to start off with, what is really important is that while we read a lot in the news about new funding rounds, companies being launched, you name it, there's also a different side of that story. And that's a lot of these companies will shut down. 90% of startups fail, and in 60% of the cases, that's due to the team. And to talk about the team, there's loads of research being done, and there's loads of evidence that team dynamics are important, that diversity really improved results. There's a lot of studies that have been done, but still, if you look at our industry, most of the decision making is driven by bias, network, stereotypes, pattern matching. So that drives a lot of the decisions, and that is actually, in our opinion, pretty strange, especially very early, pre-seed, seed, Series A. And well, more so, of course, pre-seed and seed. You often have a team and a vision. And what you want to know is whether that team can execute on the vision. Is this the right team? Because you can look at the numbers all you want. They are often still projections in the future. And what is really there is the team. And what is well surprising that in a world, especially the tech world, that's so data-driven, that actually people don't look data-driven at teams. But we do. And how do we do that? So we have a model that Eva, the other partner in the fund, created during her PhD at Berkeley in San Francisco. And she studied over 1,000 teams, 80,000 data points, and later on also used that model to refine it with a lot of different VCs. And there's a few things we look at, and we start with personality traits. And then we focus on those traits that have a proven positive impact on venture success. So think about stress resistance, resilience, perseverance, all things that are really important qualities for an entrepreneur. And when VCs look at teams, we often see them look at leadership styles. But leadership is one of those things that have zero proven impact on the success of ventures. It might be interesting as a talking piece, but it doesn't per se give you any guidance. So that's important to know. So personality traits. Then of that, passion for entrepreneurship is a really important one, because the amount of passion entrepreneurs have really also drives their creativity, their perseverance, etc. So the other personality traits. And what is really interesting with passion is that where diversity normally always is a good thing, when it comes down to passion, actually it's not good to have a lot of diversity, because the decisions you make and the things you like to do are very much driven by where your passion is. And if those are too different, it will clash after a few years. And I've seen that happen quite a lot. So there's 3 types of passion. There's a passion for founding. Those are the entrepreneurs that really like the initial phase, but then also quickly want to move on, start something new, sell, put somebody else in charge. Then you have the founders that have a passion for inventing. They are the ones that really like to work on the product and services and are less interested in hiring people, growing the team. You see them very often with really technical founders. Then you have people that have a passion for developing, who like the phase beyond startup, who like to build a team and a culture. And you can imagine that if you have a passion for founding and you quickly want to sell, you make really different decisions than when you have a passion for developing. But also that having a strong passion for developing and a strong passion for inventing can really clash, because one means growing the team and the other ones actually means staying small. And what we find here is that entrepreneurs, when they start a company together, often assume that they are on the same page. And that's often not the case, but they just assume it, they don't talk about it. But this is a really, really important one to get clear. Where do people really want to go? What gives them energy? And how different is that? And even if it's different, it's not per se a red flag if you are aware and you can agree on where you want the company to go. But I think when you have been in entrepreneurship for a bit longer or have seen a lot in VC, that you will easily recognize these three passions and also see a lot of situations where it has gone wrong. It's, by the way, really important to mention that when we do the analysis, we look at the core team. So not just the founders, but what the founders indicate as the core team. And sometimes that is just the founders, but sometimes that's the founders and a few other people. And we don't present it as a test, because at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong. You are what you are. But it gives us some guidance on how we can work together, where there are potential issues. And well, if there's too many red flags, we won't invest, because we think that the wrong team can't make something work, even if the market is amazing. So we would not invest then. So personality traits, passion. Then we look at human capital skills. So those are more the hard skills. So is there startup experience, failure experience, industry experience, and are there truly complementary skills and knowledge in the team? Because that last thing is the key driver for diversity having better results. And so if we have three really technical people in front of us and they say they're going to conquer the US, then we do ask questions around that, like who is doing that, and yeah, so we really need to make sure that there's complementary skills and knowledge in the team. Then we look at the team dynamic, because you can put the smartest people in the room, but if they are not willing to share that knowledge, then that knowledge is basically useless. So one of the key things is having a shared vision. And again, there people easily assume that if they start a company together, they have that same vision, but you really need to talk about that in detail. And so if you have different founders in front of you, then also ask them what they think, and not when they are in the same room, but that's an easy way to get to find if people are on the same page. But also the team dynamics is really important. Is there enough psychological safety? Is there the right team cohesion? Because these things are really important to get the maximum out of their personality traits, the human capital skills, to really make that work seamlessly. And we've seen situations where we assessed the company we didn't invest in, and the founders thought that they were one big happy family and they were all on the same page. And when we did the analysis, it turned out there was a huge distrust in the team, and people were not aligned at all. So for the founders, that was shocking to hear, but good information, because if you continue not knowing that, it can be really devastating to your company. And then one thing that people are often surprised by is the importance of conflict. And that sounds like a negative thing, but if we see a company where like everybody agrees and it's like, oh, all good, that's actually not a good sign. It's maybe not a red flag, but definitely an orange flag, because conflict is really important for many different reasons. And we are talking about task-related conflict. So not personal, not like I don't like you, but that you can really have discussions about the content. Because if you can have that, that means there's a huge amount of trust, which is one of the key drivers for the right team dynamics. It means there's a diversity in skills and knowledge, because if you all agree, then probably there's not a lot of diversity. So having this task-related conflict is one of the crucial things for having a successful team. Then it's important to understand that every founder has imposter syndrome, at least most of them that you see around. And like everybody is afraid to fail. The big difference between entrepreneurs and other people is that their drive for success is bigger than their fear of failure. But also here, passion plays a role, because that fear of failure can really get to you. And if you have the wrong kind of passion, then you can really burn out because of this. So, and what do I mean with the wrong kind of passion? If you start a company for the wrong reasons, so for the money, for the status, those are the wrong drivers, and they will make you a burnout much faster. So it's important to understand also what drives an entrepreneur. Then I think most of you do know this, but I want to make sure, and that's why I'm saying it again, because it also is related to teams. We tend to believe that we live in a meritocracy, where when you do the right things, you get the funding. So if you're really good, that you earn the funding. In reality, especially the VC world, is a meritocracy. So people invest in who they know, what they understand, people who look like them. So, and that's a very human thing to do, but also has a negative impact on how the entrepreneurial ecosystem looks like, because, well, you know, the VC world is very white and male, and the companies we invest in are very white and male. And as said, talent is universal, opportunity is not. Network still plays a key role. Without an introduction, it's difficult to get in front of a VC. And this is also important for you later when you are going to work at a VC, or maybe you already do, to realize that getting into a network is extremely difficult. And I know it's very popular to say, well, a great entrepreneur can arrange for that introduction. But that is really BS from people that are in the networks. If you're not in the networks, it's difficult to get in. And for me personally, I think that it's not the same for an entrepreneur to try to win a customer as to win to get in front of a VC. That's a different type of skill that you need, and unnecessary. I want them to focus on the business. So that's also why we have removed all that. So we have this screening of teams data-driven, so that we remove the bias, the stereotypes, the pattern matching. So we really look at, is this a good team? But we've also removed the other things, like you don't need an introduction, you can just send us something and then we will take a look. I have so many discussions with people that say, yeah, we just can't find them, they're not good enough, we don't want to lower the bar. But we think actually when looking at all entrepreneurs and take the best from that you're actually raising the bar. And it is crucial to get a more inclusive world, where the fact that we have very non-diverse team working on problems excludes people, but also to make sure that we solve a broader variety of issues. I always say, if you're a rich white man from Silicon Valley and you think a taxi is too late, you invent Uber. Awesome. If you grow up without clean drinking water, you probably start a really different company, because entrepreneurs tend to start a company solving a problem that they face themselves. And we need that broad variety of problems to be solved, not just the ones that we face in cities or in Silicon Valley or all the productivity tools out there. So we need that diversity, really important. And I think our portfolio also shows that when you do look at all entrepreneurs, when you remove all the barriers, that and you pick the best ones, that you can actually get to a diverse portfolio. So 1/3 of the investments we've done, so and we've done 15 deals. There's only 14 pictures because one is so new that the picture is not ready yet. But so of the 15 deals, 1/3 were through cold emails. And they were amazing opportunities. So and amazing founders, which we would have missed by ignoring cold emails. And I saw a tweet today or yesterday from a founder, a well-known founder, third-time founder, had the right VCs on board. Like he did everything right. Repeat founder, right university, right investors already on board, growing business, doing really well. And he sent out cold emails to the funds that claimed on Twitter that they were looking at cold emails. None of them responded, because and that's a sign, because if they would have looked, they would have seen his credentials and he would have gotten the money like blindly, almost. So this is the result of our approach. We don't have a diversity mandate. We don't have a diversity targets. We have a mandate to invest in the best companies out there. And so for us, when we look at all the companies, that turns out into a portfolio with over half of the companies having a female founder, quite a quarter have a female CTO, 60% with a founder of color. And if you match everything, 93% have a diverse founder. Also quite a broad age range, so it can be done. So when people ask me, about unconscious bias, I tend to start to say it's not unconscious anymore. In this day and age where we are all aware, it's just lazy if you have a portfolio with just white men. So a few other things about teams, and then I'm ready for all the questions. So we always share these results with the founders, and going back, that we do with the analysis. And a question we often get is, do founders actually like to do the analysis? And the answer is yes, because most founders know how important their team is and they like the information. We just analyzed 20 companies that have gone through the Nochen Accelerator in Sweden, and they were super happy with the information they got, because they know they will make their company better, and at the end of the day that team will make the difference. And if people don't want to do it, are negative about it, that's actually the largest red flag there is, because it says something about how they look at taking advice from others, how if they are open to critique. And so that's a huge red flag for us. And there's with us, there hasn't been one that didn't want to do it. When Eva was testing it for other funds, there were, and most of the time when the VCs would do the deal anyway, that turned out to be not a great deal. Also, by analyzing things more data-driven, you can avoid that you fall in love with a deal, because you easily do. You like the founder, you like the idea, and but it doesn't mean that this is the right founder to solve the problem. And that's what you need to find out. Eva did an analysis once, and amazing product, nice market, fast growing, but a lot of red flags on the team. And the VC was in love with the deal and did the investment anyway. And within 6 months, everything crashed, and everything the model predicted turned out to be true. Another example of one of our portfolio companies where we did the analysis, and it turned out one of their most recent hires that was supposed to do the sales in the US came up as a red flag. And we discussed with the founders, like we always do, and they felt something was off, but they couldn't pinpoint it. So they were really happy with our objective analysis, because so it makes it easier to have a discussion other than, oh, I feel this or I feel that, and that's more difficult. And objective analysis helps to take the personal and the feelings out of the discussions and having people accept it more easy. So yeah, I think that's important to mention. They got rid of that salesperson, a great thing. Another company we invested in, it turned out that the founder really had a passion for developing, but the rest of the team really were more on the inventing side of things. And that was quite a large bridge, and it held the company back and it held the founder back. So what we did is help her recruit a COO who would bridge the gap and bring the engineers more, the engineering people more on board with the goal of the founder, and have that all more aligned. And that worked out beautifully. So a few other things on teams that I learned both as an investor and a founder is, and this quote came from a founder friend. It's better to have no breath than a smelly breath. And that means if you have somebody in the team, or you're working with founders that have somebody and they have doubts about that person, often just get rid of them as soon as possible. And that's tough, because most startups have a small team. They never have enough people. And you really feel like, oh no, I need all this work to be done. I can't find the time to recruit somebody new. But at the end of the day, ask any founder, if you still fire the person, it will work out better than it would have with that person, because your team probably feels the same about that person. They will be happy that that person is gone, but also they pick up the work very easily. So it's always better to do that. Then it's important to hire both in VC and in the teams that we invest in, to hire for skills over resume. We've seen that we have a portfolio company that's where you can test skills of people, and we've done that with our team, and you get really amazing people from that otherwise you would not have hired. Then a thing about connecting teams, and this is really also more for the teams you're going to work with on the founder side. When I was a founder, the engineering team and the sales team, they were always fighting. And this is not unusual, because engineering thinks that sales sells stuff that is not there, and sales is mad that engineering is not building what the clients want. There's often not a lot of understanding between these teams, and I've seen this so often. And what we did, what really worked to get them understand each other better, is we sent the entire sales team on a data and coding training. And we sent the entire engineering team on a storytelling training. So they could much better express their great ideas they had, and would be verbally get stronger against the often very verbally strong salespeople. And initially, the engineering team hated me for putting them through that, but once they did it, they really loved it, and it really helped. Then when you're looking at teams of founders, one of the things that I think are extremely important is that you hire Kung Fu Pandas. And what that means is, it is also related to the skill side of things, but that you hire people with the right attitude. Because most of the things you do in a startup are not rocket science. you of course need certain experts on certain coding, but most of the other things, you need people that are willing to put in the work, that are willing to learn, because in corporates, but also in startups, things move fast and you need to change really fast. And as soon as you have people that only fit in certain boxes, then you will really slow down your pace. So I always say hire Kung Fu Pandas. This one, I think we are going to skip. I don't know how we are in time, but I want to make sure that we have time for questions. So let's first go to the questions and then see if we have time for the last bit about role models.
Thank you, Janneke. So this is getting us started just with wondering about if you could tell us a little bit more about data gathering tools or types of questionnaires that you use to evaluate these founding team personalities and features. Have you created them, or is there anything particularly recommend?
Yeah, so the model is created by Eva, and those are all validated questions, and then we follow up by interviews. And so far, we have done like the non-sexy version, just with a questionnaire tool, fairly simple. A SurveyMonkey or anything basically will do, because it's all about how you analyze it. And now we're turning it into something more custom that will also produce a beautiful report and that we create ourselves.
So kind of minimum viable product through to
well, the more the offline version versus the fancy.
Okay. And Diana is asking, how long have you been using this approach to analyze? Have you had this in place from the beginning?
Yeah, this has been in place from the beginning. So we did our first close last February, but Eva has been working on this for the last 10 years. So it's not something that just came up, because only the research she did took more than 5 years. Otherwise, you can't see the effect of certain things, and you need to know whether certain things really have an impact on the success of a company or not.
And you mentioned some of when she was doing the research, some of that was done with other funds and other organizations. Really interesting to know kind of how much of a difference they saw in who was getting through their pipeline initially when they were looking at, kind of skills versus resumes and personality traits, rather than what you, as you rightly said, is quite often the process for picking teams, which is I kind of like this background and we seem to gel, as in we investor and founders seem to gel quite well as a pair.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that most funds would use her like on a case-by-case basis, and when she worked at a different funds, there's this one example, a huge company and a really large round, especially considering it was 3-4 years ago. And everybody knew with this specific company that they either had to put in more money or do an exit in less than 2 years. But until she got involved, nobody had spoken to the CFO. And while that person would play quite a significant role into either selling or fundraising. So, and he turned out not to have the ambition nor the expertise to be able to do that. And if you don't find that out, then you waste so much time. And we all know that time is crucial. So also figuring out these kind of things. But to answer your question better, it was more on a case-by-case basis, and we hope to be, having additional proof once we move forward. But yeah, this is based on 80,000 data points, so it's really validated.
We're very excited to kind of see what happens with Capital T going forward in that approach. I mean, the numbers do speak for themselves in terms of who you're investing in, but obviously quite early to see the follow on. Simon is asking if he's saying what's the company that provides the skills tests you mentioned? Is it just one company, or it sounds like this?
Yeah, no. So the model we use to evaluate teams is different than the one that I mentioned about skills. That's Test Gorilla.
We will probably try and put a link in that later on if you want to do some more research. Yeah. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A rather than putting your hands up. I can see a couple of hands are going up, but put them in the Q&A because we'll be able to get them better. Let's say I'm really hoping I'm saying your name right. I'm so sorry if I'm not. I saw that there are a few solo founders on the slide, which in itself is quite unusual. Do you often accept solo founders as a fund?
Yes, so we have nothing against solo founders because the team is key. And a solo founder that's really good at building a team can also work. There's also a risk teams because they often start fighting with each other. So there's a lot of advantages also to think of with solo founders. So we are definitely not against solo founders when we see that they have the ability to build a good team around them. And with solo founders, we try to pay extra attention to their mental health because being an entrepreneur is tough. And if it's just you, that can even be tougher. So I want to make sure that they take breaks, holidays, and that they are okay, that they have people to talk to.
Really important, and actually something we don't talk about enough, I think, in VC is taking care of the mental health with your team. So really kind of we'll pick up on that again as well later. Also to carry on with this initial question, you kind of covered a little bit of what you look for in the founders, so kind of ability to build a great team around them. Is there anything else that you specifically look for when you're assessing solo founders that would be different if you're assessing co-founders, or is it kind of a similar?
It's similar because then we ask like the solo founder, what is the core team? And then we analyze them. So, and then of course you want to make sure that the incentives are in place to keep the key people. But
makes a lot of sense. And do you ever find that they need to find a co-founder, or is it always kind of a different, like just finding the team member, and if it needs to be a co-founder, then
it doesn't need to be a co-founder? No,
yeah, doesn't matter. You don't need to help them with that. Okay. Well, question. This is a good point. How do you win a competitive deal? So if a founder doesn't feel they need to do the analysis, have you ever had to kind of sell the point to them?
No, actually we win deals because of the analysis. Because founders really like to get the input and they like our approach so much that they, so far, all of them made room in the round if we wanted in. So this helps us win deals. And we've been in really competitive deals.
I suppose this kind of ties into a broader thing about picking teams, not just how do you pick teams, but how do you make sure teams pick you? Look at your and your unique insight.
Well, and what is, I think, very positive as well, not so much related to the team analysis or anything, but we have a very diverse team on our end as well. And we see more and more founders that don't want to work with certain funds who don't, and specifically want to work with us because we do have that covered and we are outspoken about it and do say it's important.
So again, everyone goes, this is why we're creating what we do, and seeing the founders pick up as well. Quick point about the Q&A. Sorry, if for any reason the Q&A box is jamming or you can't put anything in the Q&A box, do put it in the chat, and I'll now that I know that's an issue, I'll keep an eye there as well, but do keep the questions coming. So Mo is saying, it's a long question, so bear with me. If the startups that make outsized returns for VCs are by their nature anomalous or unique and don't fit a prototype, is a data-driven approach looking at teams able to accurately provide good insights into this kind of anomaly?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. But I think actually this helps because what often happens when you don't analyze data driven is that you do use stereotypes or certain pattern matching. Somebody that might look like other founders or was from Stanford automatically gets certain things accredited to him or her. That should not per se be the case. And when looking at skills that are important for an entrepreneur, so also for outlier entrepreneurs, you actually, I think, have a better chance of finding them than by just doing the pattern matching. So I think this actually helps to find them.
I guess because in some ways maybe almost the data makes it easy because you can see that there's certain data models and yeah.
Yeah, so we're not looking off copies, and definitely not all the entrepreneurs need to fit certain criteria, but there's just things that that are really crucial, like the passion, the perseverance, but also how the team works together, and yeah, those things contribute all the time, also for the outliers. Does that answer the question? I don't know who asked it.
That answered the question. Okay. So I've got another question coming through. Is the analysis done at a specific stage before the investment? If the analysis is done at a specific change before the investment, but founders and markets change, for example, a founder's personal life can change, which should affect the founder's attitude or approach or anything, how would you adjust for that? Is that something that comes up often in due diligence, or would that be something you'd plan ahead for portfolio support and ongoing?
Yeah, we do that for portfolio support, because not only the founder changes, the context changes, the phase of the company changes, the team. So there's many factors, and for each phase, other things are a bit more important. So we try to do it on an ongoing basis and support founders with it then. Mm-hmm. And I think what you can also see quite early is if people are open for feedback and have a learning attitude, and then they will be fine later on. We never expect things to be perfect from day one, because they are not. They never are.
And this is a good point, because I wanted to pick up on the fact that you assess the whole team, not just the founders, which is the more common approach. Because I guess that would also help you. Do you find that helps you have a better idea of how the team would adjust to if something changed to the founder?
No, definitely. But also the example of the company where a key salesperson was a red flag, you would not have found that by just speaking to the founders. And a lot of some of these things are not like killing the company, but delaying them, and time is crucial.
It's an extreme example, but there was a fund I used to work at where one of the founders went off to become, decided that they wanted to become a Buddhist monk, and dropped everything, their entire business and everything, which is obviously not something you can plan for. But I guess with your approach, you'd at least know that the team is a little bit more about the team when that happens, and who else is around. That doesn't happen often.
No.
It has been known to take place.
Let's hope not.
No. So Mo again is asking, have you seen Social Capital's initiative as the data-driven approach, and have you found other funds making progress in this regard?
There are some data-driven ways, but that often is related to deal flow and not so much to team analysis. I think that's still very limited, and I think it shouldn't be.
Sorry, my laptop has frozen. So hopefully you can see me or hear me.
Yes, okay. I can. I don't know.
I can hear. I can't see voices moving. So I'm hoping that I'm just going to keep talking, and things will pop up again. So bear with me for now. Sorry about that. Dodgy Wi-Fi. I also want to pick up on your point in the meantime then about how you see conflict as being really good as a sign of diversity of thought and yes. And I just wonder, kind of, for future VCs and the people who are watching this now, how do you go about asking some of these questions and beginning some of these assessments? And also, how would you advise them to go about yeah, raising some of these questions? And you're moving again, so I'm hoping that I'm back properly.
Yeah, no, so we always try to say that it's really to find out how we can best work together, where we can best be of support, yeah, they just accept that. I think if you put it as a test, then that's not working. But yeah, as mentioned before, most of them really do appreciate support on their team, and they are also quite curious how they score basically. And there's a lot of things you can really work on. So for example, team trust, which is crucial. If that's not optimal, you can work on that. You can certain things you can't work on, but those things you can. So yeah, that doesn't answer your full question, does it? So how the future VC should get on board?
Yeah, how what have you found to be kind of the most effective way of approaching these
I think, yeah, to be just transparent and because we do the analysis with the survey and then we have an interview. And what I found with this interview, that if you just create like a bit of an informal situation, that people really like to talk about this. And they are really open about the things they say. But if you approach it like, we're going to test you, then people have an act. And you want to make sure that that's not the case. So that means that you also need to be vulnerable and transparent from your end.
Mm-hmm. I think that's also another point that I think we will probably come back to quite a few times in the course of this program. Am I on TV? The course of Future VC and the masterclasses is about the point about kind of humanizing the VC side as well, because it is a human relationship and it is a human interaction, and sometimes firms or firm employees can forget that, and I think that's a really important point for you to remember. But Jesus is asking again, have you run this analysis with your own fund, with new team members at the fund, and kind of new hires as well? And I'm guessing you're talking about new hires there, Jesus. And if so, have you found any particularly important characteristics?
Yes, we did, because we knew a lot of our LPs would also ask that question. And we are really complementary in our team, which I think is a good thing. We also saw where we lacked certain things, so that was good. But we often get questions from also corporates that say, oh, we want to use this. Would it also work for us? But this is really specifically designed for entrepreneurial teams. And working in a corporate and getting your salary every month is really different than running your own business. So there's certain elements that might be suitable for other environments, but not everything.
There you go. It's good to know that you're complimentary. I guess that's the outcome you were hoping for there.
Yeah. Well, and we do have a lot of conflict. So we do have really tough discussions. So we already sort of knew, but yeah.
Again, it's really interesting you look for conflict there. Prasanna is asking, how often have you decided not to invest in a team after running this analysis? I guess what's the kind of initial filter point? And can you share some examples of what's made you decide not to invest? So some of the other red flags that.
Yeah. So yeah, we did decide it a few times. since we now use it at DD stage, you can imagine it's not like tons, because then you're already quite far. We plan to apply it way sooner, already for the selection. But so a few reasons: team trust, and like a lot of distrust in the team, actually a non-functional team, because that's what that means. A CEO founder who didn't want to share anything with the team, who thought he was the only one that knew everything, just, yeah, not willing or capable of learning. So these are the reasons, so far, the main reasons not to invest. But it's interesting that there's one team where one of the with a few founders, and one of the founders was a sort of orange flag. We were having some questions, but the CEO founder was so strong that we decided to move forward. And that third person is now going to leave the company. So you can't ignore the signs. The data, you can't ignore the data.
That's a really good point. I have a question as well about your meritocracy comment earlier, and about kind of how difficult it is for people to tap into the right networks to access a VC. I think your point about having a third of deals come through cold emails is amazing, because that is, for anyone who is watching who either has been an entrepreneur, works for a startup, or has been previous experience, or is now going through the process of working with funds, you know that doesn't happen very often. But on the other hand, do you have any advice to our VCs, our future VCs here, on how to access networks of the founders that they want to reach out to? Because as far as we're concerned, it's a two-way street. It's not just founders who need to find you, you need to find them.
Yeah.
To get
no, and that's why we try to be very present in the different communities. So we speak in a lot of places, we go to places where others don't go, and we are very vocal in the media. So yeah, there's so many ways to do that I just can't understand how VCs today can still say, yeah, they're just not there.
So you'd say just more about kind of getting out there and being vocal, and then you get access to the networks.
Yeah, and having scouts, so have people who are present in those networks, and make sure you're visible to them, and just, yeah, so they know how to find you. But there's also one of these founders that I followed already on Twitter, and I thought she was doing amazing things. And then when we had a fund, I just reached out like, oh, are you raising? Mm-hmm. So it's, yeah, it goes both ways, but I think it's also a matter of them finding you. We do quite a bit of demo days. One of the deals we've done was through a demo day, not YC, because everybody goes to the YC demo day, but a female founders demo day. And we try to go to specific Black founders demo days, and all these kind of things. There's sometimes there's just these awesome founders there.
To find the right groups and sign up. These events are usually free as well. It's really important to mention, or yes. Quite often you don't need to pay to go. No. And increasingly you can also just get access to everything online, or get sent everything afterwards. So you don't even need to like track across whatever city you are based in.
Yeah.
That's a really key point. And we're also going to have a session about kind of personal branding later on, but I think it's really helpful to kind of mention that from now. We are coming up to past, and I want to make sure that we've kind of got time. So if anyone has a last question that they want to jump in before we round out with kind of final announcements and so on, please put it in now. But I want to ask, what's your kind of, as well as how you approach questions and how you approach discussing and looking at teams, what would you say would be kind of a key way that you can recommend our future VCs can apply this approach that you've been talking through of looking at skills and looking at teams without necessarily the kind of full structure that you have at the time, which is obviously kind of proprietary to you?
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you to give all of that away.
No, I think it starts by just having conversations. And I see a lot of analysis being made on the numbers, on the market, but just talk to the people and talk to the core team, and not just the CEO founder, who's obviously really good at pitching and presenting his or her company. So I think it starts with that, and really ask people for their attentions, try to find out what they really, how they see themselves with the company, how they see the future of the company. And if you speak to a broader group, then you get a fairly good picture already.
Do you ever think when you're talking to, so you've already talked quite a bit about some, like, do you ever think when you're assessing the team at that stage, like how you can bring new people in, or a new network, or do you tend to just kind of go, this is the team, this is where it is now?
Yeah, no, that's what we do, but you know, they always need to hire, so you obviously do think about that. But if there's real issues with the founding team, you can't remove the founding team. So then you just shouldn't invest. So really, if it's a salesperson that's not one of the founders, then it's fine to think that way. But with the founders at this phase, yeah, they need to be really good.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Janneke, for your time and for coming to speak to us and sharing your process. Like I said, this is kind of a really interesting process for you lot to be hearing about, because it is data driven, and it is more focused on skills, and it is more actually kind of a bit more in line with how we try to find people for Future Feasible as well, which is quite interesting. So it's really, really helpful to kind of just to come in here and hear this insight. Little bit of admin for those of you who weren't here at the very beginning of the session that I just want to cover quickly, and apologies to those of you who were, but just a reminder, we are going to be connecting you with your mentors ASAP. Apologies for the delay. If you signed up for a mentor, but you signed up after the deadline, I'm really sorry. We've had to prioritize those who came through the deadline. We're looking for some more mentors to fill that gap for anyone who signed up later, but it's got to go. We're going forward. We will make that connection as soon as possible. And also, yes, this recording will be made available on Notion. It will only ever go up on a Friday. So please always do check in on a Friday or on the weekend after the Friday if you need to catch up on any recordings. But otherwise, Janneke's just said there, get in touch on LinkedIn if you have any more questions. We're going to put some of these details on the Notion as well, along with the recordings. So yeah, you should be able to access everything on Notion. I think that was another question that came through on Slack. But yeah, thank you for joining. Thanks again, Janneke, and see you guys tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.